Welcome back, everyone. Today, I want to be talking to you about one of the best secret characters in fighting game history. Guess he's not much of a secret anymore. And if you read the title of this video, you already know who it is. Akuma. I could have done this video on someone like Reptile, Smoke, or any of those other guys, but honestly, Akuma's whole thing is a lot more interesting. Akuma made his first debut in Super Street Fighter II Turbo, but not as a fightable character or a playable character. At first, anyway. You see, to even unlock the chance to fight him, what you needed to do was beat the entire arcade ladder as any character in under 20 minutes. Now, granted, the number is a lot more specific than that, but 20 minutes is about the minimum. And if you somehow manage to do all of that without losing, by the way, I need to stress that, without losing, and then you manage to get to M. Bison without losing still, you're greeted with this. Oh, good heavens. Yes, Akuma just comes out of nowhere and just starts beating everything up. This character seems indestructible at first, and he will wreck you. You will not beat him on your first try. And, as we all know, you probably should know, Street Fighter 2 Turbo is glitched in America, meaning its difficulty selection is unable to be selected. And Akuma is just a very strange secret character. No one knew how to beat him at the time. Heck, a lot of 90s kids didn't even know he existed at the time. He was just this mysterious evil Ryu who could teleport. And those who did have the privilege to fight him would later find out that he was harder than you think. Just by showing off just by doing his signature moves. And can I just say that his introduction was awesome? Like, at this point, we all thought that M. Bison was the strongest character in the game. The strongest character in the series at that point. And he was just strong enough to take over the minds of everyone in the tournament. And then Akuma just comes in out of nowhere and kills him in one hit. And then the game asks you to beat him. This is oddly perfect for such a secret character. If you're beating the game this quickly, you're kind of going out of your way to go and fight him. And if you are, then you deserve to fight him at his best. But what if I told you you could also play as this guy? That's right. By inputting a secret code on the character select screen, you can actually play as Akuma in this early game. Now, granted, I have to show footage of someone else doing it again, mainly because I'm terrible at this code, but if you manage to put it in, then you too can play as Akuma. And Akuma is just as powerful when you use him as when the computer uses him. Granted, you still have to try with Akuma. I mean, he's not just this indestructible being. And you'll realize he has less health than usual. Mainly because Akuma is just that powerful. He can charge up fiery Hadokens. He has all of Ryu's special moves. He can teleport. He is just so powerful. He hits like a train, and his animations are just spectacular. I also love how he doesn't have any win quotes. It makes him more mysterious, which was kind of his whole thing at the time. It was just this mysterious evil guy who just appeared out of nowhere, killed M. Bison, and then tried to kill you. And now you're playing as him. If you were a 90s kid and you knew this cheat code, you were just showing off at that point. And I I can't blame you. Akuma is definitely an awesome character. Sadly though, after the Alpha series, he kind of lost his secret character status. But in the Alpha series, he did gain one extra move. And I think you all know where I'm going with Street Fighter Alpha 1 is just such an interesting game. I had the privilege of playing it on the Anniversary Collection, and I just love it. The fact that it was made in less than 6 months is just something else. But of course, Akuma is in this game. And spoiler alert, he's in almost every main series game. But Akuma hadn't yet lost his secret character status. You see, in this game, you unlocked him the exact same way as you did in Street Fighter 2. Secret code to play as him, beat the game really well to fight him. But there were a few differences. Like, for example, on the original arcade release, you could actually input a code to fight him early. Now, that was something different. But I have to stress, Akuma was just as difficult back in those days as he was in the modern as he was in Street Fighter 2. So, if you put the code in, you were just putting a code in to lose. But if you did put in the Akuma code, you almost won the whole game if you knew what you were doing, because Akuma was powerful. All of his traits were amplified. He had so little health that it might as well not even count, but he had so many strong attacks that if he did land hits, it was basically over. But what was interesting was that he gained a few new moves. Obviously, he gained the famous Raging Demon, which became his signature special move. He also gained a upward throwing Hadouken, a fire Hadouken, and everything else. Yes, I did just pronounce Hadouken both ways. Now I can irritate both sides of the Hadouken fan base. And I just did again. But yeah, not too much to say about Akuma in this version, but there is one interesting thing. They actually gave him a personality. You see, in this game, it's revealed that Akuma actually has some morals. He doesn't fight anyone who doesn't want to fight, and even if he does fight, he will not kill anyone unless he deems them as worthy. So yeah, in a twisted sort of way, he's actually a moral killer. Now, I'm not saying he's a good character in terms of morality, but he is an interesting character and I do like him. He also despises M. Bison for stealing the powers of everyone else rather than getting stronger himself, which is very interesting. So yeah, Akuma in Alpha 1 was surprisingly really fleshed out. All of his traits were amplified, and Alpha 2 did the exact same thing. There's not much to say about Alpha 2 Akuma, he's basically the same except for Raging Demon is now a lot weaker, and the custom combos now exist. But there was one thing, one new character that really threw everyone off. Now, while it is true that Akuma is in Street Fighter Alpha 2, I find that there is another character who is just a little more interesting. Evil Ryu. Evil Ryu made his very first appearance in Street Fighter Alpha 2. As a sort of hypothetical scenario where the evil that is in Akuma had fully taken over our main protagonist, Ryu. We even later got a name for this evil, the Sasui no Hado. The Sasui no Hado was apparently the force that took over Akuma and allowed him to kill Goken. I put kill in quotation marks because we later learned that Goken survived. And now Ryu is struggling with that fact. We now later learn that Akuma never kills Ryu because he wants to awaken the Sasui no Hado inside of him. The Sasui no Hado has become such an important part of the lore of Street Fighter that it's hard to imagine a time without it. But this is important for the story of Akuma because it adds a bit of story to him. It adds a power attached to Akuma. Now, as for if Akuma gets more interesting outside of the Alpha series, the answer is of course yes. But let me explain. Akuma later became a character in Street Fighter III's base roster. There's not much to say about this guy except for the fact that the Raging Demon is just a move he has, and he doesn't need to select it, meaning he's one of only two characters who can have multiple special moves, the other one being Gil, in case you're curious. But it was around this time that a secret character was created, Shin Akuma, an early predecessor to Oni, who we'll get into later. But Shin Akuma was apparently just a more powerful version of regular Akuma, and he was supposed to be playable twice in the Alpha series. But both times he was unfinished, so both times he was scrapped. Shin Akuma never really appeared again outside of this, but that's because we got something better later on. Once again, Akuma made his way into a new game, that being Street Fighter 4. But once again, there's another character more interesting than that. And wouldn't you guess it, it's not only the return of Evil Ryu, but the introduction of a brand spanking new character. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Oni. Oni is basically another hypothetical scenario character, only this time, instead of being a scenario where Ryu is fully taken over by the Sasui no Hado, it's a scenario where Akuma is fully taken over by the Sasui no Hado. And if we thought that evil Ryu was scary, oh man, Oni is outright terrifying. Oni has the ability to crush anything with just his blowback. Now, I could talk about the fact that Akuma has mostly original moves now, but Oni was just too good not to mention. I mean, look at these animations. Oni is just the scariest Street Fighter character to exist right now in terms of design. I don't count Kage because Kage is lame. He would also appear in Street Fighter V and would become important to the story for the first time there as well. We also got the introduction of Kage, who is basically just evil Ryu. But Kage is really lame, so I'm not going to talk about him too much. Now, instead, Oni is just a perfect representation of what can happen with the Sasui no Hado. And, well, I was going to talk about Street Fighter 6 next, but there is one more thing we need to talk about. I couldn't talk about Akuma without talking about his many guest appearances in other games. Mostly X-Men, the game, and Tekken 7. The fact that Akuma keeps appearing in games he's not supposed to is just really funny to me. But what's interesting about the X-Men games is the fact that Akuma actually inspired the Capcom versus Marvel series. I am serious. He actually was the whole reason why the Marvel vs. Capcom series got taken off the ground because Capcom snuck him in. That's just really funny to me to know that Akuma being smuggled into a series he wasn't supposed to was the catalyst for a whole series going off. But it's also really amazing. Anyway, I know I was talking about mainline games, but I, I just had to mention that fact. It was too good not to mention. Anyway, it's time to get to the obvious one, the latest version of Akuma. As of recording this, Street Fighter 6 is the most recent Street Fighter game to exist right now. Street Fighter 6 has the most interesting gameplay version of Akuma. As for story, I haven't really played too much of that, but I have played a bit of the arcade. But I have played against someone in an arcade before. So, Akuma has his own move set now, with several different flipping moves and even his downward thrusting Hadokens. He can also turn into Oni as his install, which I think is the first time a Street Fighter character's install became his own character and then later just a part of the moveset. Akuma is basically just a very interesting version of all Street Fighter characters. So yeah, my final thoughts on Akuma? He is awesome. I just love Akuma as a character. The fact that there is this evil version of the characters who has a lot of depth to him, he's not just an edgelord, is just so cool. Also, the fact that he became interwoven to the lore of Street Fighter is just super special to me. Now, as for what I'd like to see in future installments, I'm not sure. I think they did all they could with Akuma, honestly. Maybe explore his struggles with the Sasui no Hado. But other than that, I think they got him just where they need to get him right now. So, what are your thoughts about Akuma? Please let me know in the comments below. I personally think he was one of the best secret characters of all time. But I know that's a bit of a hard take, mainly because characters like Reptile existed. So yeah, please let me know in the comments below what you think of Akuma. And as always, I've been the Gamer Nerd, and I know for a fact that I've said to Sasui no Hado so many times that I have probably butchered it. Anyways, goodbye, and thank you for watching.